There's a silent battle happening inside every one of us, a war between who we are right now and who we are capable of becoming. Most people believe their struggles with consistency come from laziness or lack of willpower. But in truth, it runs much deeper than that. It's not your body that resists change. It's your subconscious mind. From the moment you wake up to the time you fall asleep, your subconscious is running programs that were built through years of repetition, emotion, and experience. These programs decide what you think, how you feel, and what actions you take without you even realizing it. The human brain is designed for efficiency. It repeats what's familiar. So when you try to step outside your comfort zone, your subconscious mind sounds the alarm. It whispers, "This isn't safe," even if that change could transform your life. Think about it. How many times have you promised yourself, "Tomorrow, I'll start fresh"? You make a list, feel the rush of motivation, and for a few days, you follow through. But then, one distraction, one stressful moment, one emotional trigger, and you fall right back into old habits. That's not weakness. That's programming. You've spent years training your brain to respond a certain way to stress, to boredom, to uncertainty. The subconscious loves what's predictable. It would rather keep you in familiar pain than let you risk unfamiliar growth. This is why change feels so uncomfortable, because it's not just physical effort, it's neurological resistance. If you want to become consistent, you must first become conscious. You can't win a battle you don't know you're fighting. Every thought you repeat becomes a mental groove, a neural pathway that shapes your future. Neuroscience shows us that the brain doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. It simply follows the dominant signal. So when you constantly think thoughts like, "I always fail, I'm not disciplined," or "I'll never change," your subconscious accepts those statements as commands. It begins to organize your actions and emotions to make that identity true. That's why people repeat the same cycles year after year. They are loyal to their old identity, even when it doesn't serve them anymore. To reprogram your subconscious mind, you must first observe it. Start noticing your internal dialogue throughout the day. How do you talk to yourself when you're tired, stressed, or tempted to quit? The moment you become aware of those patterns, you begin to interrupt them. You move from being a victim of your mind to the observer of it. And that's powerful because the observer has choice. The observer can say, "This thought does not belong to my future self." When you choose new thoughts intentionally and pair them with emotion, gratitude, love, belief, you start teaching your subconscious a new language. Emotion is what programs the subconscious. That's why you can't just think positive. You have to feel it. You have to rehearse the feeling of success before success arrives. Every time you visualize your goals, every time you speak affirmations with emotion, you are reshaping the neural landscape of your mind. You are literally building new connections, new habits, new ways of being. This is the foundation of true consistency, not forcing your behavior, but transforming your identity. Because when your subconscious believes you are someone who follows through, your actions naturally follow. Consistency becomes effortless when it's who you are, not what you do. But this transformation requires awareness, and awareness requires presence. You can't change while you're lost in autopilot. Most people wake up and immediately repeat yesterday. They check their phone, scroll through distractions, relive yesterday's emotions, and reinforce yesterday's mindset. To change, you must interrupt that pattern. When you wake up, you must consciously decide. Most people see discipline as a form of punishment, a daily struggle against temptation and weakness. But true discipline is not about forcing yourself to act. It's about learning how to align your energy with your intentions. It's the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. The problem is that most people are trying to use discipline from a state of resistance. They wake up already drained, pushing against the current of their own emotions and thoughts. Real discipline doesn't come from struggle. It comes from coherence. It's not about fighting yourself. It's about training your energy to move in one direction. Every thought you think, every feeling you hold, emits a frequency. You can call it vibration, energy, or emotion. But whatever name you use, it determines how you show up in your daily life. When you're living in frustration, fear, or doubt, your energy is scattered. One part of you wants to move forward, but another part is anchored in resistance. You're running two programs at once. One saying, I want this, and the other whispering, I can't do it. That internal conflict drains you, and the more you fight it, the weaker your discipline becomes. To truly embody discipline, you must learn to align your energy with your purpose. Discipline starts in the mind, but it's fueled by emotion. When you attach powerful emotion to your goal, not desperation, but deep desire, it becomes easier to stay committed. Imagine you're tuning yourself like a radio. If your intention is to succeed, but your emotions are tuned to frustration and impatience, you're broadcasting to different frequencies. The result is static, confusion, inconsistency, and burnout. But when your thoughts, feelings, and actions are in harmony, discipline flows naturally. You no longer have to force yourself to show up because you've become magnetically aligned with your vision. This is why some people seem unstoppable. They're not superhuman, they're energetically coherent. They've trained themselves to feel the emotion of success before the results appear. They've conditioned their bodies and minds to believe that showing up daily is part of who they are. When you reach that level, effort transforms into ease. You begin to feel pulled by your purpose instead of pushed by your fear. Discipline then becomes a frequency, a vibration that you hold, no matter what's happening around you. The challenge is that most of us are trapped in old emotional patterns. We want to move forward, but we keep reacting to life through the lens of the past. We wake up thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and repeating the same behaviors, all while expecting change. The body becomes addicted to the familiar emotions of stress, worry, or guilt. And when we try to break the pattern, the body resists. It craves what it knows. This is why discipline feels so hard, not because you lack strength, but because your body is addicted to being who you've always been. To shift your energy, you must first become aware of the emotions that dominate your life. Every time you choose discipline, you're sending a new signal to your nervous system. You're teaching your body that it no longer controls your future, your mind does. The first few days of change may feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is evidence of growth. You're interrupting the emotional patterns that kept you small. The body wants to pull you back into the familiar, whispering that it's too hard, that it's not worth it. But every time you say no to those thoughts, every time you follow through despite resistance, you're building energetic momentum. You're proving to yourself that you're no longer a prisoner of your old self. Discipline isn't about how strong your willpower is. It's about how clear your energy is. You cannot sustain willpower through exhaustion, but you can sustain purpose through energy. When your vision excites you more than your comfort seduces you, discipline becomes a natural response. You begin to act from inspiration, not obligation. You no longer wake up asking, do I feel like it today? Because your identity has shifted from someone trying to change to someone who already is changed. You're no longer chasing results. You're maintaining frequency. To master the energy of discipline, you must learn to raise your emotional state before you take action. Begin your day by connecting to the feeling of gratitude for what's coming, not for what you already have. Gratitude creates coherence between the heart and the brain. When those two centers are in harmony, your energy field expands, your focus sharpens, and your emotional resistance weakens. You stop needing external motivation because your energy becomes self-sustaining. Every choice, every repetition, every step forward strengthens that frequency. There will always be distractions, doubt, and fear. But when you are operating on a higher energetic level, those things no longer hold power over you. You begin to notice that the same actions that once felt draining now feel empowering. You start to crave consistency because your energy recognizes it as alignment. The frequency of discipline isn't about control. It's about flow. It's when your mind, heart, and body move in unison toward one intention. And when you reach that state, you no longer see discipline as sacrifice. You see it as liberation. Consistency is often understood as repetition through force or habit. But in truth, it is the language of the brain. Every consistent action you take strengthens a specific set of neural pathways, turning effort into automatic behavior. When people fail to remain consistent, it's not because they are weak. It's because they have not yet built the neurological structure to sustain the change. The brain doesn't respond to wishes or temporary motivation, it responds to patterns. It learns through repetition, emotion, and attention. Each time you think a thought or perform an action, neurons in your brain communicate with one another. Imagine your brain as a dense forest. Every thought and action is like walking through that forest, carving out a path. The first few times you take a new route, it's difficult. You're pushing through branches, clearing obstacles, creating direction. But the more you walk that same path, the easier it becomes. Eventually, the path is clear, automatic, and effortless. This is how the brain works. When you decide to build a new habit, such as exercising daily, waking up early, or practicing gratitude, you are clearing that neural path. In the beginning, it feels unnatural because the old trails, the habits of procrastination, doubt, or distraction are more familiar. But the brain doesn't care which path you walk most. It only reinforces the one you choose most frequently. Consistency, therefore, is not a matter of luck or personality. It's neuroplasticity in motion. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. It means that no matter your age, background, or past mistakes, your brain can change. Every day, you have the power to rewrite your internal programming. But this process demands awareness and repetition. You can't expect one burst of motivation to undo years of conditioning. The brain learns through consistent exposure. This is why small, daily actions are far more powerful than sporadic bursts of effort. It's not about intensity, it's about frequency. When you act consistently toward your goals, your brain begins to release chemicals that reinforce the new behavior. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward, is released each time you make progress, even if it's small. This chemical not only makes you feel good, it also strengthens the neural circuit associated with that behavior. Your brain starts to crave the feeling of progress, and that craving becomes fuel for further consistency. This is how success becomes a biological process, not just a psychological one. You are literally training your brain to enjoy discipline. However, inconsistency disrupts this process. When you constantly start and stop, your brain doesn't have time to solidify those new neural patterns. It's like planting a seed and digging it up every few days to check if it's growing. Growth requires stability, and stability requires faith in the unseen. The moments when it feels like nothing is happening are the moments when your brain is working hardest to rewire itself. Consistency is not about immediate results. It's about trusting the process of transformation that's happening beneath the surface. Another crucial aspect of consistency is emotional regulation. The brain is deeply influenced by emotion. When you perform an action while feeling inspired, confident, or grateful, the neural connection you build becomes much stronger. On the other hand, if you repeat an action while feeling resentment or boredom, the brain doesn't record it with the same intensity. This means that consistency is not only about what you do, but also about the energy you bring into what you do. When you combine repetition with elevated emotion, you accelerate the process of rewiring your brain. To create lasting consistency, you must also address the conflict between your conscious and subconscious minds. Your conscious mind sets goals, but your subconscious runs the programs that dictate your behavior. If those programs are rooted in self-doubt or fear, they will override your conscious efforts. That's why so many people fall into the cycle of self-sabotage. They consciously want change, but their subconscious is programmed to seek comfort. The solution is to make your new actions more familiar than your old ones. When you show up repeatedly, even in small ways, your subconscious begins to adapt. It starts to recognize the new behavior as safe, familiar, and normal. Once that happens, your resistance fades and your actions flow with ease. Consistency also changes the way your brain perceives time. When you commit to a long-term vision and show up daily, your brain learns to delay gratification. You stop needing instant rewards because your identity becomes linked to the process rather than the outcome. You start to enjoy the work itself because your brain understands that progress equals pleasure. This shift is the foundation of mastery. The greatest performers, athletes, and thinkers in history all share one thing in common. They train their minds to love repetition. They understand that consistency is not just doing the same thing over and over. It's becoming more aware, more refined, and more connected with each repetition. The science of consistency teaches us that transformation doesn't happen in a single moment of inspiration. It happens through thousands of small, intentional choices. Each time you show up when you don't feel like it, you're not just building a habit. You're changing your brain. You're sending a message to every cell in your body that you are serious about who you want to become. Over time, your brain begins to mirror that identity. The neurons that fire together, wire together, and the new version of you starts to take shape. Consistency becomes the invisible thread that weaves thought into reality, vision into behavior, and intention into identity. Every transformation begins with one powerful realization that you do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. The life you're experiencing right now is a reflection of your internal state, your thoughts, your emotions, and your beliefs. When people try to change their circumstances without changing who they are internally, they find themselves stuck in a repetitive cycle of frustration. They want success, but they think like someone who doubts. They want confidence, but they feel like someone who's afraid. They want abundance, but they still carry the energy of lack. The elevated mindset begins when you stop trying to fix your outer world and start transforming your inner one. The moment you shift your identity, everything around you begins to reorganize itself to match the new frequency of who you've decided to become. Most people live from their memories. They wake up each day thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and expecting the same results. Their mind is a record of the past, replaying familiar patterns over and over again. That's why it's so hard to create a new future while living in the emotions of your old story. The brain, by nature, is a prediction machine. It constantly anticipates what will happen next based on what has already happened. So when you try to step into a new version of yourself, your brain immediately compares it to your history. It asks, is this safe? Is this familiar? And when it doesn't recognize the new you, it triggers doubt, fear, or procrastination. Not because you're incapable, but because your mind is designed to protect you from the unknown. The elevated mindset requires you to make the unknown your new home. To create the identity of your future self, you must start thinking from the perspective of that person, not about that person. Most people visualize their goals as if they're watching a movie of someone else's life. But real transformation happens when you step into the scene, when you begin to feel, think, and act as though it's already done. The brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It only responds to experience. When you repeatedly experience your desired future through thought and emotion, your brain begins to rewire itself to support that reality. You literally start to program your body to live in the future instead of reliving the past. An elevated mindset means you stop asking, when will it happen? And start saying, it's already happening. You begin to embody gratitude for outcomes that haven't yet appeared. Gratitude is a powerful emotion because it tells your brain that the event has already occurred. When you feel grateful for something that hasn't happened yet, you're teaching your nervous system to believe in your vision before it manifests. That emotional alignment sends a new signal to your brain and body, guiding your behaviors, decisions, and focus toward that reality. You're no longer chasing your future. You're living it from the inside out. This process requires presence. You can't elevate your mindset while being trapped in the noise of your old self. Every time you react to stress, doubt, or judgment, you're reinforcing your past identity. But when you catch yourself and choose a different response, you weaken the neural connection that supports that old pattern. Over time, the emotional charge attached to your past begins to fade. You become less reactive, more conscious, more in control. The elevated mind doesn't deny challenges. It simply refuses to identify with them. You stop saying, I am stressed, and start saying, I am experiencing stress, but it's not who I am. This separation between emotion and identity gives you freedom. It allows you to operate from a place of awareness rather than survival. Your future self already exists in potential, waiting for you to align with it. Every thought of self-doubt, every fear of failure, every limitation is simply energy holding you in your old frequency. The more you feed those thoughts, the more you strengthen that version of you. But when you start to live as your future self, even in small ways, you begin to shift that energy. The future no longer feels distant because you're embodying it now. You walk differently, speak differently, and make decisions differently because your mind and body are being conditioned to that elevated identity. It's important to understand that your brain follows your attention. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. If you constantly focus on what's missing, your brain will show you more lack. But if you focus on what's becoming, your brain will expand your awareness to new opportunities and synchronicities.